Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks lunchtime streaming show, where we watch old 16mm films from my collection and from other people's collections. That was Crucifix of Destiny, a little short one-reeler from the Oregon archive, which ultimately came from the Mogul Brothers archive, which was a library which was based in New York City. It was a library that I believe you could rent films like this. And so we've seen a lot of educational films from that library, but every once in a while they would put in a fictional narrative, and that's what we just saw. And you guys did some Googling to try to figure out who was in it, and so pretty great. Let's see. So behind me I have the, I'm not even going to try to gesture. So I want to do it with that hand, but I'm going to do it with this hand. Yes, perfect. Because the webcam is mirrored weird. So behind me is the Cintel Blackmagic film scanner, and so we have a film set up on there. So we're going to go ahead and watch that. This is about science fairs. I love science fairs. Enjoy.
A nation's survival in this world of competition may well depend upon the state of science and technology. The students of today will be the players in this arena. Their courageous ideas and work will make them the pilots of progress. The extensive study of science is a must in these challenging times. One way of learning is the participation in a science fair. Science fairs are a productive and dramatic way of learning. They encourage students to go on their own scientific adventures. They create initiative and develop communication skills. They motivate students to apply critical thoughts to the solution of a problem. Students often obtain expert help from members of their community, thus gaining practical experience in the real world. Just completing such a project has its own satisfaction, but the chance of winning an award is the icing on the cake. And in some instances, future careers have been triggered by science fairs. Well, how do you develop a science fair project? We will follow step by step the creation of one. The chemistry was right, a concerned teacher, and a motivated student. But still, the outcome of it all was somewhat unexpected. This is Mary Catherine, a student in Los Angeles. She developed a science fair project in biology and works on her presentation. But it took a great deal of effort to reach even this stage. Every story, every invention, every work of art starts out with an idea. So does a science fair project. The idea for Mary Catherine's project came to her when she learned about pollution in a nearby lagoon. She knew also that a small creek flowed into this ocean inlet. She had a thought. Why not call the people concerned with the ecological problems of this environment?
National Park Service.
Hi, this is Mary Catherine Doherty from Portola High School, and I'm doing a science project dealing with the Malibu Lagoon and Cold Creek. I was wondering if I could come to see you to get any information you have on the studies done in that area.
Yes, we are doing these tests on a frequent basis. I'll be glad to show you how it is done and help you with your research.
Great.
Can you come over next Friday?
I'm sure I can, but I'll just check with my mom first.
Okay. Please let me know.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Mary Catherine is getting ready for her interview with her science teacher. She has to present a title for the project. It should reflect the basic idea of the study. Scientific terminology should be used whenever it's appropriate. Titles are very important. They advertise the project.
Mr. Roy, I have my title, research, and procedure for my science project. I was wondering if you could approve them.
Okay, what is your title?
The ecological destruction of the Malibu Lagoon.
Okay.
The teacher has to look for many things.
What your research looks
The
like?
soundness of the scientific approach, the availability of the necessary material, and certainly safety.
Very good.
Hazards may be caused by chemicals, electrical equipment, bacteria, and from experiments involving high temperatures. Special regulations apply when live animals are used.
You need petri dishes, vials, filter paper, nutrient agar. Did you check to see if we have it?
Yes.
Okay, I'll double check that. Okay, everything looks very well. I'll sign it here and you have my approval. And
Thank
good
you.
luck to you.
Thank you.
Now that Mary Catherine has gotten the green light, she wants to get an early start. She has to find out all she can about the topic she is dealing with. A great amount of information is taken from magazines and technical journals. She will make a list of all the source material. Such a bibliography should be part of every good presentation. All the reading and research will enable Mary Catherine to form a hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess based on prior knowledge.
With both biological. Mr. Roy, I formulated my hypothesis on my science project dealing with the Malibu Lagoon.
Okay, thank you.
The teacher examines the hypothesis in the light of the previously established lines of research. He agrees with the suggested procedure and discusses the detailed steps necessary for the project. This is the first sampling site close to the source of Cold Creek. Mary Catherine is taking a sample. She uses a sterile bottle. Keeping accurate records is a must for science fair projects. Each sample is identified by a number, which is the key to location and date. Further work would be impossible without such records, which will become part of the project summary and notebook. Record all data regardless whether they confirm or not confirm the hypothesis. This too has scientific value. The same observations are repeated a few miles downstream to register possible differences in the chemical and biological content of the water, if any. Testing at different locations is essential for many experiments. Tap water will serve as a control. Mary Catherine knows that it is free of contamination. This is the Malibu Lagoon, the site of greatest interest for this research. Mary Catherine wears gloves as protection from the pollution in this water. In order for the test to be scientifically correct, the student will have to repeat it to take into account unusual circumstances, such as rainfall, varying degrees of upstream pollution, discharge of chemicals, and other factors that would make a one-time test invalid. Later the same day, Mary Catherine prepares the count for the amount of pollution present at the various test sites and follows the same procedure for her control, tap water. She received permission to do this work at the laboratory of the National Park Service. Ranger Rose supervises the procedure. Some of the key steps. Mary Catherine removes a sterile membrane filter from its protective covers and places it on the filter holder. The amount of pollution will eventually register on this filter. The first sample is tested. The liquid is forced through the filter by vacuum action. The membrane filter is removed and immediately transferred to the previously prepared Petri dish that contains a pad saturated with the growth agent. Mary Catherine writes the sample number on the Petri dish. This process will have to be repeated for every sample gathered on this day. The samples are put into the incubator, which maintains a temperature of about 40 degrees Celsius. A hard day's work has finally come to an end. Next day, the samples are removed from the incubator. The membrane filters are taken out. A bifocal microscope is used to determine the total numbers of coliform colonies that developed. The tiny dots under the microscope indicate the results of the test. Mary Catherine keeps accurate records of this information, which will have to be coordinated with the counts from other test sites and the control. A couple of months later, Mary Catherine has completed her field work. The results are entered in her project summary and notebook. The data are arranged to form a conclusion, and the findings are compared with the original hypothesis. Now Mary Catherine has to construct the display. A three-sectional board will serve as a backing. Most science fairs specify the size of the displays and indicate the maximum space that is available. Mary Catherine had seen such displays before and remembers what she liked and disliked about them. Also, her science teacher gave her some helpful hints. The first impression is important. Clarity counts. As a matter of fact, it is one of the scoring considerations. The title should be readable from a distance. Also, she must keep in mind that the display will have to be transported to the location of the science fair. Mary Catherine has to gather all the supplies to make up her presentation. Some material was given to her by her teacher, but most of the lettering, paint, and stationery has to be obtained by her. She has a small budget and goes from store to store looking for bargains to make ends meet. At home, she goes over her checklist to make sure that she has all the materials for the project board. Then the task of constructing the display board begins. The exhibits of all the students participating in the science fair are in place. The judges examine the presentations. In some instances, they discuss the projects with the students.
Where did you get the idea for your science project?
I was interested in ecology from the beginning, and then I was talking to a scientist, Mrs. John Hopper, and she informed me about the major pollution problems in the Malibu Lagoon. So I thought it would be really interesting to do a study on the lagoon. I decided to test for fecal coliform count as a measure of biological pollutants because Mr. Paul Rose of the National Park Service instructed me that that is really the most accurate way to measure biological pollutants. And I decided to do a chemical analysis to see if there were any chemical pollutants in the water.
This evening was a new experience for Mary Catherine and her family.
I appreciate you coming out tonight and supporting our program, and I hope that we can give you something that you'll never forget.
Mary Catherine was already ahead of the game. She had completed an intricate project, but she wanted very badly to receive some recognition for her work. Students in other categories were called to receive their awards. Whoever received the first prize in a category was invited to give a brief speech. Suddenly, it was the turn for the students in the biology group. One name was called after the other.
Second place, Lauren Block. And first place is Mary Catherine Dooley.
Yeah, my project is the ecological destruction of the Malibu Lagoon, and the importance I thought about it was not only to detect if the Malibu Lagoon really is a health hazard to people, but the lagoon is an estuary, and it breeds forms of life that can only be bred in areas where salt water meets fresh water. And so if we destroy these estuaries, then we're going...
Mary Catherine's first prize in the biology category triggered another event. It made her eligible to participate in the Los Angeles County Science Fair. Over 400 entries were submitted for this competition. Teams of judges examined every one of the competing projects and scored them by scientific approach, creativeness, thoroughness, skill, and clarity. Many of the students were invited to discuss their work with the judges. Mary Catherine was chosen for such an interview.
Mary Catherine, tell us about your conclusions for this project.
Well, I conclude that Cold Creek is relatively free of pollution. Crater Camp has a considerably high number of fecal coliforms per 100 milliliter, being that the count was 80. The Malibu Lagoon has 975 fecal coliforms per 100 milliliter. And if you can compare that to the federal law stating that only 200 may be found in water that's safe to swim in, you can imagine the damage that such heavy biological pollutants can have on the animals and the plant life in the lagoon. And as you can see, there are birds feeding off the lagoon, and they do include endangered species.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mary Catherine, again, received the first prize in the biology category. She and 21 other winners could now advance and compete at the California State Science Fair. The best projects of all the counties in the state were represented in this hall. How would Mary Catherine hold up against this competition? She came in first in her category. Yes, this was a pleasant surprise. One of the reasons for Mary Catherine's success was that she followed every step of the procedure as outlined by her teacher. We hear a lot about the declining interest of science education in the United States as compared to other countries. Unless there is a drastic change of this emphasis, we may lose our lead in basic research and high-tech industries. Science fairs are one avenue that would lead to a turnaround of this condition. Every school should have a science fair. And if you haven't yet participated in one, think of a project and go for it.
I think the theme music is what makes it really exciting. Let me stop this real quick. Oh, come on. Get over it. Get over it. God, so weird. So the tension on that is getting wonkier. I don't know if I'm slowly breaking the motors or what's going on, but it's annoying. So you know that I like to get coffee as a donation by going to ko-fi.com/avgeeks. That's a way to support us. Well, there's actually a coffee roaster / coffee shop in Eugene, Oregon that sent me some coffee. Wandering Goat coffee. It smells very good. I'm very excited. Yummy. So you can still donate to us via the ko-fi.com. We spend that money on other things as well, like, oh, you know what? This light's not on. That's part of the problem. On things like artist tape. We've been buying and replacing rusted cans. So we buy plastic cans to hold the films, because what happens is if a metal can rusts shut, then you get this kind of feedback thing where this chain reaction where the production of vinegar, acetic acid, begins to break down the acetate, and it actually makes it even more rustier and makes it more airtight, and so it kind of creates these vinegar bombs. So my intern has been going through and pulling those. And unfortunately, we've lost some good films in there. I mean, some of them have been scanned, and sometimes we have a duplicate. But yeah, there's some of those that we're going to go through and try to get a scan off of them before we toss them, which is unfortunate. But it's kind of the nature of it. A lot of these films I got, they were already vinegared. And so, anyways, we're doing what we can. We're not going to run out of films. So there you go. Let's see, what do we got? God, there's so many options here. This one's pretty interesting. It's called Pressure Groups, and it could be, updated vocabulary, could be special interest groups, could be lobbyists. I don't know. Let's watch and find out. Pressure Groups. Enjoy.
In a democracy, people constantly endeavor to have influence in the conduct of public affairs. The right of all citizens to speak their minds on political questions is recognized as the cornerstone of the democratic process. In recent years, people have developed a powerful but highly controversial instrument for political action. This is the pressure group.
Sorry, fellas, I can't give you but a minute. That highway bill's coming to a vote. The pressure boys have been after me all day.
Now, Senator, about that highway bill.
No comment on that. Say, you're new on this job, aren't you?
Yes, Senator, this is Joe Tuma. He's the new man covering the State House for the Sun.
Glad to meet you, Joe.
Rough time, don't they?
Well, yes and no.
No, but they do get in your hair a good deal, don't they?
Young man, do you really know what a pressure group is?
Well, I've seen them in action around the State House long enough.
But you still don't know. Let me tell you something. Any spokesman for a pressure group who comes in here to see me is talking for people. Important groups of people. And believe me, I listen to them.
But, Senator, what about your party? Isn't that organized to give expression to people's political opinions?
Yes, political parties are organized for that purpose, but pressure groups do a somewhat different job. After all, political parties are largely concerned with getting people elected to office.
And pressure groups aren't?
No, in a little different way, as you'll find out after you've been here a while. Certainly, pressure groups are interested in who gets elected, and they often work for the election of candidates. But you won't see a pressure group nominating and supporting a candidate for office in the same way the political parties do. No, sir. They leave that to the...
Yeah, they're too busy pulling wires behind scenes.
Sometimes they are, but that's not the point. All pressure groups, regardless of their aims and methods, are made up of groups of people who have certain common interests and who want to get the public and the government to adopt certain policies.
By the way, what are the important pressure groups in your district?
Well, just about the same as they are everywhere else in the country, I suppose. Yeah. Take a look at some of the letters I get, for example. There are all kinds of groups interested in political issues these days. In fact, there are few people today who are not involved in one way or another in the activities of pressure groups. Among the most active and effective are the economic pressure groups. All these organizations of businessmen, farmers, laboring men, professional men, and even consumers. They carry on pressure activity to further the economic interest of large groups of people. Then there are other pressure groups who speak for special interests, groups acting to protect racial and national interests and minorities, organizations promoting patriotism, and groups working for a wide range of civic reforms and improvements.
All these groups put pressure on you?
Yes. I can always count on hearing from them whenever anything comes up that affects their interests.
I bet you do. If they had their way, you fellows would be running the government exclusively for them, not for the general public. That's what's wrong with public affairs today. All these pressure groups in every city hall, every state capital, even down in Washington, all playing politics, scheming, conniving, putting on the heat. And for what? To get you fellas in government to run things their way.
That's where you're wrong, son. Actually, pressure groups serve a useful purpose in giving people a greater voice in their government.
I'd like to see you demonstrate that, Senator.
Well, I think I can. You remember that slum cleanup bill we passed in the last session of the legislature?
Sure, that was a constructive piece of legislation.
Well, a pressure group had a lot to do with putting that over. And I'll tell you how it happened.
It seems that being fair with you, Thomas, hasn't done much good, has it? On 4 different occasions, and with only minor punishment, I've attempted to consider your disrespect for the law as something you might possibly outgrow. But now it appears the only thing that is growing is your disrespect for that law.
Sir, Judge, I don't think Tommy understands you. He does respect the law.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Williams, but after careful consideration, I find it necessary to send you aboard at the State Reform School for a term of not less than 1 year.
You won't change your mind, Judge.
No, I'm sorry. Your boy is certainly old enough to be responsible for his actions.
He's responsible, huh? Well, look at the neighborhood we have to live in. No place for the boys to play. Nothing around them but filth and corruption. Who's responsible? Well, it's you people.
Now, Steve, you promised last week not to bring your cases home with you.
I'm sorry, Helen. More and more, I find it impossible to forget what I see in my court.
I know, Steve. Perhaps the answer is on its way.
The answer? His mother had the answer. She said all of us were to blame, that we're to blame for conditions in that part of town.
And she was right, Stephen. We think we have a progressive community, but we've been keeping our eyes closed. It's up to us, the parents, to clean up those slums.
What can we do? We'll take an act of the state legislature. We've talked about it for years, but where's the support?
The people of this city could get the legislature to act if they put on enough pressure. And I'm going to do something about it. A lot of people feel the same way.
What are you going to do, launch a pressure group?
I don't care what you call it, but I'm going to start it right now.
Responsible citizens with common interests turn automatically to pressure group activity to gain political ends. A movement may begin with a single person or a few with a common cause.
It's up to us to make every neighborhood in this town a fit place for our children to grow up. It's up to us to clean up the slums. We must do it now. Thank you, ladies.
Ladies, I know we all want to thank Mrs. Snow for her very eloquent appeal, and we're going to get behind this drive 100%. Why, it's just shocking. But what can we do about it?
Yes, Madam Chairman, just what can we do? It takes an act of the state legislature.
We'll all have to get to work on this thing, and there'll be plenty for everyone to do. Now, here's what I suggest.
Many organizations maintain headquarters in state and national capitals. Here, the paid representatives of pressure groups keep watch over government and battle for the political demands of their members back home.
So that's what we're up against. Our people want action. You've got to help us.
Mrs. Snow, we're ready to put the whole state organization behind you. We'll show you real pressure. Won't we, Miss Dodd?
I hope so. Fine. Our people are really up in arms about this.
All right. Now, the first step is to get the plan for cleaning up the city slums introduced in the House and the Senate.
Well, I've already talked to Representative Pritchard from our district. He'll introduce the bill in the House.
Now, Miss Dodd, who would you suggest in the Senate? You usually carry a senator or two around in your handbag.
Well, there's Senator Broyles. He's from Mrs. Snow's district. He'll introduce the bill, and he carries a lot of weight.
All right. What's the next step?
I have a plan of strategy. But first, let's get together with Broyles and Pritchard.
There's the bill, ready to go. We're going to introduce it tomorrow. Does it cover everything?
Senator, if it'll give us the power to clean up the slums in our town, then it covers everything.
I think it does the job. Representative Pritchard will handle it in the House. I'll look after it in the Senate.
We'll get it through the House easily enough.
That Senate committee is the real hurdle. If we can sell it to the committee, the Senate will pass it.
And the committee is loaded with men who are against the whole cleanup idea.
Let's see who's on the committee now. Well, there's Farnham, there's Smith, there's Jenkins. Carrie, there's one vote you can count on.
Yes, Miss Dodd. They say around the State House that every time Senator Jenkins has dinner with you, he changes his vote the next day.
Senator Jenkins is an intelligent man. I see a good chance to line up a majority of that committee.
I wouldn't bet on it. I'll do the best I can, of course, but the real work's up to you folks.
But why wouldn't you bet on it, Senator? After all, we're fighting on the right side. Who could fail to see the wisdom of it?
Nobody could, Mrs. Snow. Nobody at all. But they'll see it quicker if they think a lot of voters are behind it. You've got to put pressure on them. Real, honest-to-goodness pressure from the people.
And so the pressure is on. The strategy of a pressure group that works democratically is to mobilize widespread public support for its program. By persuading citizens to express their opinions and stimulating discussion and debate, the group attempts to create sentiment which will influence the views of the men whose vote will decide legislation.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Carlson. I represent the Association for Community Welfare. We're working on that some clearance bill, you know. I wonder if you'd let me explain the bill to you. Won't you come inside? Thank you.
We expect every one of you ladies to write your representatives in the legislature demanding that they vote on this bill.
We urge you to canvass the mothers in the neighborhood. Get them to write too. Now, as you leave, you will find the pamphlets on the table at the door.
Ladies, the Evening Times is giving you all the help we can. Look here. A full-column front-page story on the mass meeting you held last night.
Yes, Mr. Thompson, but that's not enough. We don't feel the public is getting all the facts.
But we are printing everything that's news.
Mr. Thompson, here's one of the pamphlets we've put out. Do your readers know that juvenile delinquency in this city has gone up 25% in the last 10 years?
No, I'm sure I didn't know that myself. Let's see what else is here.
You'll find a lot of information there that's news, Mr. Thompson. Now, wouldn't this be a good time to start an editorial campaign appealing to civic pride? Good morning, Senator.
Morning, Miss George.
Well, there's a lot of mail again this morning, Senator Jenkins. Most of it about that slum cleanup bill. I suggest you look over some of these letters.
That's so any from my district?
Yes, you'll recognize the names.
Well, what do you know? Oh, George Whitby. He's worked for me in several campaigns. I guess I'm going to have to give that bill some serious study.
These facts and figures you've given me tonight, they're quite convincing, Miss Dodd.
Better watch out, Senator. You know, Miss Dodd is most disarming just before she moves in for the kill.
All we want, Senator, is your vote for our bill.
Well, you have presented a strong argument. Your most telling point is these figures on what slum conditions are costing the city and state. But I've got to study this matter further. Consider both sides.
But, Senator Smith, how can you speak of two sides to this question? Surely no thinking people are opposed to this proposal.
I'm afraid so, Miss Dodd. There's plenty of opposition. And in a democracy, there's usually two sides to every question.
Vital to the processes of democracy is the airing of both sides of controversial questions through open discussion and public debate. Many groups of citizens, however, are afraid to present their opinions in the open forum of public discussion. Instead, they try to achieve their ends by working entirely behind the scenes, corrupting public officials and deceiving the public. The aims of such groups may be either good or bad, so far as the public interest is concerned, but their methods are a grave danger to democratic institutions.
Hi, Carl. Joe, look at this. The Star's sure going all out in that campaign to clean up the slums. We've got to do something. Why, do you know how much it would cost me in assessments if that plan went through? It's ridiculous.
You're just making a mountain out of a molehill. That won't go through. They've tried it before. I've owned this building and run this store here for 10 years, and nobody's going to ruin my business.
That's what you think. But this time it's serious. Just look at this editorial. Look at those stories. Meetings, radio broadcasts, the whole town's stirred up.
Sure, but too many of us who have property here have too much to lose by it. Wait till the money begins to talk.
That's just why I'm here. As chairman of the West Side Improvement Club, I'm calling a meeting tonight in Johnson's Cafe. We're going to lick this thing, but it will take money.
Thus, pressure for one course of action may, in some cases, generate counter-pressure for another. Very often, pressure groups gain control of civic organizations in order to give their views a spurious appearance of public support.
No, Bill, I can't go along with you on this, even though you know how much I stand to lose by this slum cleanup program.
So, what are you going to do? Cut your own throat?
Not if I can help it. But I've decided we've got to give in to that plan. In the long run, we'll all profit by it.
Well, gentlemen, let's call it a night. Looks like we're not going to get together on this. Let's think it over a few days. Meeting's adjourned.
What was the idea of adjourning before we could vote?
I was afraid to put it to a vote. Not enough of them were with us.
What are we going to do now? We've got to fight that bill, whether the rest of them like it or not.
We're going to fight it. I'm still running this outfit. It'll take money, but I have an idea. Now, here's what we'll do.
The most effective tactic of unscrupulous and undemocratic groups is to bring personal influence to bear on public officials.
No. That's not the point. Your arguments don't convince me at all. Where are the facts?
Well, Senator,
This is our position on it. And it's the position of most of the property interests concerned. Our association represents them.
Well, frankly, Mr. Drummond, I'm not sure who you represent.
Well, George, I wanted Drummond to explain this thing to you because I think he has a real case.
Perhaps he has, Henry, but he surely isn't selling me.
Well, what you may not know is that a lot of our good friends are really against this slum improvement proposition. Well, you take Joe Morgan, for example. Well, he used to be a client of yours, didn't he?
Yes, I did a lot of law work for him. So he's against it, huh?
Well, he feels like I do about it. But the legislature should move along slowly. There's a lot of money in this, you know, George.
This I know. I've been keeping that in mind.
I suggest that you think it over. By the way, do you remember a few weeks back when we talked about that little investment deal?
Sure. I never forget a promising business proposition.
Well, you know, George, I think we can really cut you in on that. And I'll tell you what we're going to do. When pressure groups work to achieve their ends through personal intrigue and corruption, they become a danger to democracy. Under these conditions, citizens' freedom of discussion is undermined, and public officials are apt to make decisions contrary to the public interest.
Now listen, Senator, I'm wholly against this slum cleanup program at this time. A great many people have taken a strong stand against it. I think our committee ought to study the whole matter thoroughly.
No, Senator, you're wrong. The facts are conclusive. This bill is clearly in the public interest.
I'm not so sure. Who were these people that spoke at the hearing? Why, Drummond didn't really express the views of the people he claimed to represent at all. The others were probably just as phony. I think Miss Dodd and her group gave us good, sound information.
Yes, and I'll tell you this. They have the support of a good many voters in the district.
Listen, are you going to let the pressure build up by a bevy of females influence your decision on this?
Not exactly. Now you listen. They are having public support because they have a sound position.
That's right. I've given both sides of this controversy careful study, and I'm convinced the bill is in the public interest.
All right, gentlemen, shall we come to order and put this question to a vote?
It was a close contest, but they went through. And those ladies were responsible for it. Now, that was a pressure group that really helped people to understand an issue and decide what to do about it.
Yes, but Senator, as usual, there was another kind of pressure group in there. The wrong kind.
Yes, but there needn't have been the wrong kind. After all, you can't judge a pressure group on the basis of the rightness or wrongness of its opinions. Everyone is entitled to his say in a democracy. Pressure groups representing selfish interests are sometimes right. And groups with noble humanitarian motives are sometimes wrong. Although I'll admit it's usually the other way around.
Well, perhaps so. But then, Senator, how do you judge a pressure group?
Why, by the methods they use, that's how. The question is this. Does a group work in an underhanded way to deceive the public, to misrepresent its case, and to try to influence the action of public officials through corruption or threats? Or does the group present its case fairly and openly in the forum of public discussion, trying to gain public support and influence the action of public officials by honest arguments?
Yes, that's certainly the question. But isn't there some way to keep pressure groups in check, to make certain that they use democratic methods?
Yes, there is a way. And that's by constant vigilance. Both private citizens and public officials should watch over pressure groups just as carefully as we watch over everything else in our political system. This is essential to the democratic process. Keep one thing in mind, fellas. You can only have pressure groups in a democratic country. Can you imagine trying to organize a pressure group under a despotism? In Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia, for example?
Right, Senator.
Yes, pressure groups can exist only in democratic nations, where citizens are free to express opinions on public questions and to engage in political action to further those opinions. In a democratic political system, citizens naturally organize themselves into pressure groups to make their opinions heard.
Pressure groups bring important political issues to public attention and arouse citizens to take action on them. Pressure groups disseminate information on these issues and assist citizens to form opinions about them. Pressure groups provide citizens with convenient channels through which they can express their opinions directly to public officials. Out of the action of democratically organized pressure groups in the give and take of public discussion and debate, the interplay of political pressure and counterpressure, the democratic process of government grows stronger, giving citizens a larger share in the making of the decisions that affect their welfare.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think this probably came out, I don't know, so Encyclopedia Britannica came out with a film about despotism, and I feel like that came out in the late 40s, but yeah, it's interesting, these narratives about how pressure groups work and why they're important. Yeah, interesting. All right, so I have behind me again, I have another film set up, so let's watch this. I don't think there'll be clowns in this, but I don't know. Man, you never know. You never know. All right. This is Night at the Peking Opera. This is not the Marx Brothers film, Night at the Opera. All right, enjoy.
Chinese theater is deeply rooted in a history and a tradition that goes back 6,000 years. In fairy tales and romantic legends, in fabulous costumes and resplendent uniforms, 60 centuries come alive again on the Chinese stage. 600 million people find passionate enjoyment in this total spectacle. Opera, ballet, pantomime, circus, comedy and tragedy, all in one. Generals, knights, demigods, princesses and villains are as familiar to Chinese audiences as Punch and Judy, as Paul Bunyan and Donald Duck would be to the American public. At the Peking Opera, traditional makeup and costume identify the player. No program notes are needed to tell the spectator that here is a general leading his armies, symbolized by the array of banners which surround him. Princesses have ivory complexion, and the traitor's face is daubed ghastly white. The Monkey King's makeup is red on white ground, because red is the color of daring. The legend of Monkey combines elements from Adam's story, tasting the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, and from the tale of Prometheus, who took fire from jealous gods. A long red beard is sure sign of a black soul. A flowing white beard, on the other hand, announces wisdom and experience. The weak and inoffensive person wears no makeup. This is young Su Xian, beloved of a fairy, who believes he has been unfaithful. The maid would not hesitate to put him to the sword, but her mistress wishes to spare him. Hers is not the hatred of a woman scorned. She feels the subtle pain of love immortal, which the delicate play of her hands and the plaintive lines of her aria try to express. The gods have discovered that the king of the monkeys has tasted the forbidden fruit of the divine tree. Thus, all the members of the Chinese Olympus are mobilizing to chastise his temerity. The Jade Emperor, the 9 planets, the 12 hours, the signs of the zodiac. Lao Tzu the immortal himself endeavor to destroy the defiant rebel. But our hero is as clever as a monkey. Clever as a man. Jade Emperor intends to make short shift with Monkey. Yet the mortal prankster has more tricks up his sleeve than his heavy-footed divine opponent. He pulls a magic hair from behind his ear, and heavenly pride goeth before a fall. emperor calls in his guards. Playfully Monkey puts them to rout. The monkey people join their king to celebrate the victory of wheat over false, the triumph of mortals over immortals. Chinese theater can dispense with machinery and technological apparatus. The lights may still be on, but if the scene calls for a night effect, imagination darkens the stage without the help of switchboards and electricians. When fantasy directs the play, this table is a bed, softer than any pillow divan. Chen, the knight worn out from a long journey, lies down to sleep. Liao, the innkeeper, cautiously steals in. He takes the knight for a highwayman, and while he sleeps wants to put an end to his career of crime. And thus begins the ballet comedy of errors. the lovely Chen journeys to join her lover. But a deep river swollen by fall rains separates her from her beloved. She hails the ferry. And an old boatman responds to her call. He is a bit old and very slow and just a trifle malicious. He takes his time and the opportunity to tease his charming passenger.
是活人呢，原来是个姑娘哦。韩老汉做啥子？赶我要雇船了。
谁要雇船，往里面去。
好好好，你摸嘛摸嘛，我打个跳板与你。我的身子上去了。喂，姑娘啊，上来不？
文当么？
文当我上来不？
我未曾打过粥啊。
我来抽，我抽你一下子就上来了。哎呀，姑娘，你看我这身子还没得讲。哎呀，你推得我糊里糊涂啊！我上来了。
You know, every day, this is why I collect films, is every day get to see something different, something you didn't expect to see, maybe something you didn't want to see, but that's what we do here, is we show you stuff that maybe you didn't want to see. But it's entertaining nonetheless. I very much like the costumes, and the music I actually like. You know, if it was longer than a 18-minute film, I would probably have some issues. Like, I don't know if I would actually go to a traditional Chinese opera, but that was a nice little dipping my toe in. Thanks for tuning in today. As always, if you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button. Those are great ways to say, yes, we think that what they're doing over there is pretty good. You can also go to our 24/7 channel, which is on avgeeks.com, and that has previous shows and other things that we've digitized over the years. And also you can buy DVDs there. Going to Patreon is a way to donate and support AV Geeks. It's kind of like a subscription tip jar. You can put in like $5 a month or more if you want. And that helps us buy things that I mentioned before, like artist tape or film cans or shelves. I think we're going to potentially do a big project with creating a new space, and we will need to get shelves. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Everybody take care. Have a great rest of your day. As always, please rewind and love each other, and we will see you on Tuesday. Take care.